Good morning, Brandon staff and students, and thank you for tuning into BTV. Today is Friday, January 17th, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of quiet reflection.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today is day 1A of the specials rotation. And now for today's weather. Right now it is a low of 48 degrees with a high of 56 degrees and a forecast of cloudy.
Our lunch menu today is rotisserie chicken with rice and roll, cheeseburger, chickpea marinara with brown rice, and seasoned broccoli.
Did you know that the word recycle means to return to be used again? We have many large blue recycling bins around our school to put paper and plastic. We also added a new bin to each campus. A marker recycling box. This will help make sure that the plastic marker coverings do not end up our landfill and harm our environment. When your marker is no longer working, drop them off in the box like the one behind us. Just make sure you have your teacher's permission first. Let's do our part to help our planet Earth by recycling used and dry out markers.
Later this month, we will be collecting donations for our annual Homeless at Heart Valentine's Drive. But before we start collecting, we need shoe boxes, and lots of them. If you have any shoe boxes at home, please bring them to school. They can be dropped off at Mr. DeCarlo's room at main campus and his office at Primary Center. Thank you.
Our IB Learner Profile attribute for the month for January is risk taker. What does it mean to be a risk taker?
Risk takers work independently and cooperatively to explore new ideas and creative strategies.
What does it look like to be a risk taker?
Don't shy away from new things. Being shy is natural, but rise to the challenge to find a learning opportunity in the challenge. It's okay to show courage and step out of your comfort zone. Share ideas with others who can help give you advice to work through the new challenge. When you get nervous taking on a new challenge, take a few deep breaths and be okay with failing a few times before you get it right.
And now for today's joke of the day.
Where do pencils go on vacation?
I don't know, where?
Pennsylvania.
This concludes today's episode of BTV. Now stay tuned for Mr. Bland and Mr. Hudson's SEL book talk for the story Me and My Fear. I'm Lily.
I'm Emery.
And I'm Grace.
Thank you for watching. Have a fantastic Friday. Bye.
And welcome back, everyone, to 2020. I cannot believe it is January already. Well, we have a special guest this month. Miss Lindsay from the SEL department is here to talk to us about our January book, and she's the one that actually chooses this book. This month we're reading Me and My Fear by Francesca Sanna, and as soon as I read this book, I recognized the drawing and the author from The Journey that we read earlier this year. What did you guys think about the book, Mr. Hudson?
I thought the book was a perfect description of my young life. So when I was a youngster, I moved around a lot, and I had some of these fears that we read about in this book.
Yeah, and if you remember from the story, right, the little girl comes to a new country, and before it's okay that she has a little bit of fear, but when she comes, she realizes that her fear keeps getting bigger.
And we learn throughout the book that your fear can start small and get bigger and bigger every day. What are some things that you guys have encountered in your life that maybe cause a little fear, or that we see our students have?
So, as we discussed before, when I was a little kid, my dad was in the military, and so we moved from place to place. So I moved from New York, which was my home, to Maryland. And because I was different, my accent was different than the kids in Maryland, they would laugh sometimes at the way that I said things, and so that caused me to have some fear.
Sometimes making a new friend can really be scary.
Yeah, I can.
So what makes you afraid?
Well, some other things that made me afraid when I was a kid was when I used to play new sports that maybe I really wasn't that good at, and I was afraid that my teammates and my coach wouldn't want me to play because I really wasn't that good at it.
And then, you know, after we moved from Maryland, we moved back from Maryland to New York. But the really scary move was moving from Maryland and New York to Germany. So just like the little girl in this story, she moved from one country to another. I moved from the United States to Germany, where it was a whole different language and just a new world.
Yeah.
And you know what, Mr. Hudson? So I actually moved from Los Angeles to Atlanta, and that made me really afraid as well. But sometimes the things that make us feel alone are the things that connect us.
Yeah, that's true. And you know, the IB profile for this book and for this month really is risk taker, because I heard all the fears that you all said. If you really put that risk taking to play and you actually utilize that, you can step out of your comfort zone. Those fears can begin to go away, can't they?
Yeah, so Mr. Bland, to be a risk taker, what SEL competencies would you feel like you would use?
I would definitely think self-management.
Yeah, and what strategies?
Well, let's see. I would definitely use belly breaths.
Oh, that's a really good one. What about you, Mr. Hudson?
I would use some mindfulness. When I would begin to feel some fear, I would use some mindfulness and just sit down and meditate and think about what it is that's making me afraid and how to conquer that.
That's a really good one too. I think also for me, it's positive self-talk when I go into a new situation, just really telling myself that it's going to be okay.
So when the little girl in the book begins to come out of her shell and make some friends, one of my favorite lines in the book was, "Fear is getting smaller each day. In school is not so difficult anymore."
So Mr. Bland, going back to your point about being a risk taker, the young lady in this story, she was a risk taker. When she went out, she sought out friends, and she sought someone that had fear just like her. Once they met each other and spoke with each other, both of their fears kind of diminished, and that's what you have to do sometimes. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations, and then the more you do it, the less uncomfortable it becomes.
And that reminds me of my favorite line of the book, "Fear is getting smaller each day, and school is not so difficult anymore." Until February, we'll see you back there, Morris Brandon.
Goes back to Miss Lander, and then I'm gonna keep this iPad here, but everything, stand, iPad, lights, all go back to the media center.